All right, guys, welcome back to the Pocket Mads channel. It's Maddie here. Today, we're going to talk about the best decks that you should be playing for this new ranked season. That's right, the ranked season is upon us. We're still getting the 2-week delays and then like the 2-week ranked seasons. I don't really know why that's the case, but we have 2 weeks here to grind out this ranked season. The metagame has progressed a ton up until this point. The first 2 weeks of the season have been absolutely insane. Bunch of new cards, bunch of new decks. So I wanted to update you guys and kind of recommend a handful of decks that I think would be the best for grinding ranked. Now, for the most part, we always talk about this, but for the most part, I would say that the ranked metagame is pretty similar to the tournament metagame. Speaking of tournaments, you guys should go and register for our tournament this weekend, PMPT number 23. Link to register down in the description below. We have $200 cash in the prize pool. Also, we're going to be live streaming it this weekend, so the live stream should be back. Really excited. But yeah, typically the tournament metagame and the ranked meta are pretty similar. However, certain decks that just sort of become popular early in the new season, even though, you know, maybe they fall off for tournament play, they're probably going to still see a lot of play in ranked. So in the lower ranks of ranked this season, you're likely going to see a lot of Golden Go. You're going to see a lot of Qianpao Suicune. These are decks that really just kind of have fallen off pretty dramatically in tournament play. But we got to keep in mind that there's still going to be quite a few of them on the ranked ladder. And one other thing as well, which is up on the screen right now, is Hydreigon. I still think there's going to be quite a few people playing Hydreigon in this ranked season. So we have an updated Hydreigon deck list, and that's what we're going to start with today. So the first deck is Hydreigon and Mega Absol. This is a revised rendition here with Furfrou and Rocky Helmet. So we're not playing the Poison Barb Nihilego stuff. This makes things much more consistent into different Chingling decks, which we're seeing a lot of Altaria this season. We're seeing a lot of Dark Greninja, which also plays Chingling. So I think that Hydreigon right now can benefit from Furfrou pretty heavily. It's just in general a pretty good card, right? So Furfrou Rocky Helmet is a great lead. Still playing Ice Pops because Ice Pop is not banned for ranked battles. And other than that, it's just a very, very simple Hydreigon deck list. And I still think Hydreigon is one of the best decks in the entire game. I think we've had it in the A tier throughout this entire season pretty much. I don't think it's like a tier 0 deck like it was last season, and that's a good thing, but Hydreigon is always going to be a really good choice for ranked because even though it has some pretty volatile matchups right now and it doesn't do great into Suicune and Qianpao, it's definitely a deck that's going to be able to win no matter what, right? And when you're playing ranked battles, it's oftentimes best to maybe not really care too much about specific matchups, right? Certainly some decks are going to be more popular than others during the ranked season, and depending on which rank you're in, whether it's like Great Ball, Ultra Ball, or Master Ball, certain decks are going to be more popular, but it's not really worth counterplaying. And typically you see a lot less Oricorio in ranked as well, but I do think that Oricorio Magnezone is still going to be one of the more popular decks this ranked season, so Hydreigon seems like a pretty strong choice in my mind. At least a decent choice. I think we have 8 total decks here, 7 different decks, and then a wild card in the video today. So yeah, this is Hydreigon. Again, just sort of an updated version. I know the Poison Barb Nihilego stuff is really strong, but I think you want to go consistency here. You want to go like anti-Chingling version, and I think that the Furfrou Rocky Helmet stuff is really good. I think it's just in general a little bit more of a consistent way to play Hydreigon, and this new build has been seeing some play in tournaments, and it's been successful. So this is the Hydreigon deck that I wanted to showcase here for the video. And yeah, I mean, I'm not a big Hydreigon fan, but if it's ranked battles, then you know it's you gotta factor in Hydreigon. It's definitely still a strong contender. Next up is going to be Suicune Qianpao. Again, we talked pretty negatively about this deck over the last week. It has fallen off pretty dramatically as far as tournament play goes. Its matchup spreads into some of the other most popular decks in the metagame, any of the Bellibolt, Magnezone stuff, or even Turbo Bellibolt, Altaria Greninja, anything that plays Chingling is also pretty strong into this deck, so I really wouldn't recommend this. I think you're going to see a lot of Altaria. However, if Hydreigon is still very popular, then you know what? I think this is a deck that probably is going to be, still a fine choice. This is still one of the strongest decks in the game. It's just the metagame this season is sort of built around beating Suicune and Qianpao. And I don't really know exactly, like in my ranked experience, there's still a lot of people playing this deck list. It's still fairly common in tournament play, so it's something that we have to consider. You know what? I still think that this is a consistent deck. It's a strong deck. I don't know how many people are going to bring Protective Poncho into ranked battles like they do in tournament play. So at the end of the day, I really do like this deck list, and I think it's going to beat, basically, like playing this in the lower ranks is going to be really smart because this is going to beat all of like the non-meta decks that you might see. So if you're kind of looking to get to Master Ball, not necessarily grind really far into Master Ball, Suicune and Qianpao is going to be a pretty strong choice. Nothing's really changed about this deck. We're still playing Guzma in here. That's more of a tournament meta counter to kind of get rid of things like Protective Poncho, but Guzma's useful all across the board, so, you know, we can't hate on it. And then we have one Mars in the deck, which I still think if you're playing Suicune, Mars is a really good card. Got Copycat in here, and I think that Copycat's going to be always good in the mirror matchup, but it's just a really good card for consistency purposes. Starting Plains, Giant Cape, buffing the HP of all of these Pokemon pretty dramatically. So I think it really kind of it comes down to how much like Lightning and Oricorio decks you're going to see. We're not actually recommending you play Oricorio in ranked battles this season. I just don't think it's a quick enough you know, pacing, and I think that there's still going to be a lot of Hydreigon. I really don't feel that comfortable about Oricorio in ranked battles, but I think in tournament play it's extremely good right now still in the Magnezone deck, but we'll get to that later in the video. You know, feel free to beat Hydreigons with this deck list and then hopefully not hit too many lightning type decks. That's definitely the one thing that you don't want to do with this deck. If you're playing, if you end up hitting just a bunch of Magnezone, Bellibolt, or Oricorio in your ranked grind, then maybe swap off this deck list. But really, I think for the lower ranks, this is going to be a great choice. It's honestly here to just farm all of the bad decks. I think this is a deck that you could easily grind with up until you hit Master Ball, and then you might want to swap to something that's a little bit more in line with competing against some of the other top decks of the metagame. That's kind of how I interpreted this deck list, right? It is sort of the gatekeeper of this season in particular. But yeah, not much else to really say about Suicune Baxcalibur. It's a strong deck. It's just, you know, I don't know. It's having a tough time competing with the other decks at the top of the metagame. But we'll see. You know, let me know. Let me know what decks are working for you down in the comment section, because, you know, quite frankly, if you're playing a strong deck and you're playing a deck you're comfortable with, I think you're probably going to do somewhat fine. I think that most people, I think including myself, but like most people in ranked, most of the time if they lose games, it's not really because of matchups. Like, you'd be surprised how many times people lose due to like misplaying in Pokemon Pocket, and making the wrong play in Pokemon Pocket is not always the most obvious thing. I've seen so many people talk to me and comment in the Discord and stuff saying they have like a sub 50% win rate and they played hundreds of games and they've tried a bunch of different decks. And quite frankly, I think it really comes down to just playing optimally, which I know sounds easy in Pokemon Pocket, but it's harder to do when you're playing hundreds and sometimes thousands of games in a ranked season. But anyway, here is Suicune and Baxcalibur, still a strong deck. Next up, we have Houndstone, and I actually think Houndstone is a legitimate deck right now. Again, we have 8 total decks in this video, and to be fair, if I take a look at all of the decks that you could play this ranked season, I think Houndstone Gourgeist fits into the top 8. I think it's actually just a strong deck list. Its matchup spreads are pretty decent. It's a deck that's been doing well into Oricorio, Magnezone type stuff. It can compete against the other top decks of the metagame. It doesn't really get impacted by Chingling, which is really nice. So if you see a lot of Chingling decks, this is going to be a pretty big upside to you. I'm just a fan of this deck. I don't really need to sit here and explain to you like the intricate reasons why this deck is going to be good. It's just a strong deck. Like, it's kind of funny. It's sort of like the Psychic type Hydreigon, but it's not like Hydreigon. It plays completely differently, but in terms of it being Psychic type and then like a mostly single prize archetype, it's pretty cool. It's just really fun to have this in the metagame. I think that this is a deck that's kind of replaced Chandelure and Meowth in terms of what decks are people choosing to play, because some people just like to play the non-popular decks. Like, they don't want to play like EX cards and whatnot. To be fair, this deck is probably easier to build than anything else that you're going to see in today's video, which is a really big upside, even though some of these cards are new. This is definitely a deck that I would recommend. You know, if I wanted to sit in, and honestly, if I'm going to grind ranked like today or tomorrow, like this might be the deck I play, just because you know, it's more fun for me to maybe play something that's not really considered top in the meta, and it's a new deck, you know. But nothing else to really say about it. Again, none of the decks in today's video have changed too dramatically. That Hydreigon deck was sort of an updated variant. We'll talk about some stuff here later in the video, but most of the actual decks are pretty solidified at this point in the season. Again, we're going into like the 3rd week here. So by the time ranked comes out, all of the deck lists themselves have been sort of optimized. So there's really not much to really discuss here. But I do think that this is a strong option. So if you're considering playing Houndstone, honestly, I think that this would be a great choice throughout this ranked season. Next up, though, is going to be Bellibolt. So let's talk about it. Like I said, I don't really think that, you know, Oricorio isn't something I really want to play myself in ranked. It's just sort of a slower strategy. It is going to be really good into Suicune Qianpao, so keep in mind if you're playing against that matchup a lot, or if you're hitting Altaria a lot, you know, those Oricorio Magnezone is going to be really, really strong. But what I really love about Bellibolt is the fact that you can play it in multiple different ways. My favorite deck this season has been sort of turbo high roll Bellibolt, and that's kind of what you see here on the screen. We're playing Pichu, most people have been choosing to play one Pichu as opposed to playing something like an Elemental Switch, which is fine. I still think that this is a going second deck even with one Pichu in the deck list, but if you do lead Pichu, you can get something going first. But Electric Generator, and then of course Lucky Ice Pop. So kind of RNG type cards in here, but you know, Rocky Helmet to boost the damage from Bellibolt. I just really like this deck, and it's kind of the most fun deck for me to play, quite frankly, and I just cannot recommend this deck enough, especially if you're going to be grinding ranked. Bellibolt is definitely a deck that likes to go second, but it's pretty strong into most things in the metagame right now. And Training Arena plus Rocky Helmet is definitely going to boost the damage up a ton. Of course, we got some RNG cards in here, you know, like Lucky Ice Pop and Electric Generator. You could honestly cut like something in the deck to play double Ice Pops if you really think that, you know, just sort of high rolling with Lucky Ice Pop is going to be a good enough strategy. But quite frankly, if you're playing ranked battles, Lucky Ice Pop is a broken card because sometimes, like whether it's 1 out of 30 games or whatever, I don't know, it's just going to flat out win you the game, which is kind of a big deal because, you know, like sometimes you need those wins and Lucky Ice Pop can kind of just do it for you. So yeah, it's a fast-paced deck, very consistent deck, quite frankly, and I think it has the opportunity to beat anything else in today's video. Again, if you're building the deck like this, you're a little bit more reliant on going second, but most decks in Pokemon Pocket are kind of reliant on going second, so, you know, shout out to Bellibolt. This version of the deck, though, does not do very well into Hydreigon, so again, it really depends on what you're hitting for matchups in ranked battles. If you're seeing a ton of Suicune, then go ahead, play Bellibolt, but if you're seeing a ton of Hydreigon, maybe don't play Bellibolt, at least this version. But yeah, I'm going to recommend you play Bellibolt Turbo high roll and not necessarily with Oricorio, but, you know, try out Oricorio. Like if you wanted to play like slower games, if you really think that the matchups you're hitting Oricorio is going to be really valuable in, then go ahead, give it a try. It's just not really what I'm going to recommend for ranked battles specifically. Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what you think is going to help you. But I love this deck. Turbo Bellibolt. Bellibolt is my favorite new card for sure. It really is just super strong. Like the fact that this thing can do so much damage, Training Arena plus Rocky Helmet, this thing is hitting for like 150 and then 170 if they attack you, and you're always living in attack, which is just absurd. I really think Lucky Ice Pop is a great card for Bellibolt because you have so much HP. You know, like if something hits you for like 100 damage, like you could just get lucky with Ice Pop and heal back up to full HP, and then you just get another free attack off. It's a really big deal and has good synergy with Rocky Helmet. So yeah, shout out to Bellibolt. Next up is going to be Altaria. We have 2 Altaria decks in the video. Again, for the longest time, Altaria has been extremely relevant in the metagame, and I honestly, like over the last 3 or 4 seasons, whatever it's been, I think that my #1 go-to Pokemon for ranked battles is Altaria. You just can't go wrong with Altaria Chingling, and quite frankly, I think it's still very, very good. This is the Gourgiest version. Now, again, I don't know if that many people are going to be playing Oricorio in ranked battles, but this is still kind of like the best, most consistent way to play Altaria Chingling anyway, and that's going to give you really good, you know, consistent matchup spreads against really anything that's playing rare candy, which is a big deal. I think Altaria Chingling is just sort of a winning combination, right? We're playing Mars, we're playing Cyrus, we're playing Sabrina, Lycia, Copycat. This deck is so consistent. It's definitely a going second deck, but Gourgeist does sort of alleviate that a little bit. If you wanted to go first, Training Arena, 1 Pokeball. It's a perfect deck list. This has been like the most refined deck for so long. I really think that Mega Altaria is always going to be one of the best options for ranked battles. Whether you want to play the high roll version or you want to play the more tempo consistent version, this being, of course, the more consistent version of Altaria, but as we know, there is the Greninja version, which we will talk about. Honestly, Altaria Greninja is super broken. We'll talk about it in a little bit. But yeah, this is definitely the most consistent way to play Altaria. But the thing with Altaria, quite frankly, is that it sometimes just feels like it's not doing enough, right? Even though you always get to the place that you want to go for ranked, it doesn't, you know, in the battles, like sometimes it doesn't feel like it's enough, especially against maybe some other high roll decks that just happen to get an absurd board state really early on. This is a deck that definitely is limited in terms of its overall strength, but a very consistent deck. So I definitely still want to recommend it. It's got always a really high win rate in tournaments, but in ranked battles, people like typically tend to lean towards more RNG sort of high roll type strategies just because you don't know what you're going up against. So I don't know. People just generally like high roll more than consistent decks, but still very, very strong. Shout out to Mega Altaria. Now let's get into the Greninja decks. Again, this is Dark Greninja, was extremely dominant like last week, like the second week of this metagame, but going into the third week, I'm still a little bit skeptical about this deck in particular. If you're seeing a lot of Altaria Greninja, if you're seeing a lot of Hydreigon, if you're seeing a lot of Suicune and stuff, this is a really strong deck. And I really do like it. It's always one of my most fun decks to play. You have Chingling, you have Rocky Helmet, and you have Nightmare Aura. So whenever you go up against like an opposing Chingling, you can kind of win the Chingling battle, which always feels really fun to me. And then of course, Mega Absol isn't like the most crazy card in the game, but it does allow some skill expression, right? I mean, I've definitely hated on Mega Absol in the past just because I don't think it's that strong of a card, but it is a really fun card to play. You get the decisions to discard certain cards from your opponent's deck, and honestly, Cyrus is still a primary win condition in the game. Greninja cannot be slept on. It's really played in not very consistent decks right now. It really kind of makes me think that Suicune and Greninja probably deserves to see more play right now, although people I think are just done with it in general. Anytime you play Greninja in a non-Suicune, non-water type deck, it generally isn't the most consistent strategy, and this deck is really no different. This is a very similar deck to Altaria and Greninja. It just, the difference is instead of playing Altaria, we're playing this sort of dark type package here, which has its benefits. This is a deck that plays only dark energy, so again, you can't attack with Greninja. You're very reliant on getting Mega Absol and Darkrai on your bench, but not leading off with these Pokemon. One inclusion I love about this deck recently is Inflatable Boat, because if you lead Froakie, it gives you free retreat, and you can still attach that energy turn 1 to Absol or Darkrai, which I really just think is a really good move. We have Chingling, we have Red Card, and Copycat. So again, this is something that is just cannot be understated. The synergy between Chingling, Copycat, and Red Card is absolutely incredible. It's one of my favorite things in the entire game, and I think honestly we should see that stuff more. I wish Chingling was in more decks, quite frankly. It's just such a strong card. But yeah, I think this is a really nice counter meta deck right now. Again, in the last couple of tournaments over the last few days, its results have been a little bit suspicious, but it should still be a really strong deck choice this weekend, or not even this weekend, but for this entire third week. If it changes throughout this week of tournament play, if something really pops up and it looks like this deck isn't that well positioned, I'll of course let you guys know about it Monday or sometime next week, but I still definitely recommend this as one of the best decks currently. Next up is going to be Altaria and Greninja, but guess what, guys? Not playing Chingling. That's right, we're going to be playing the Meowth version. And honestly, I think the Meowth version is kind of the way to go right now. Lots of Dark Greninja seeing play. And whenever Dark Greninja sees play, which counters this deck pretty heavily, because again, Dark Greninja will always win the Chingling battle, which means they get their Greninjas out before you do. That's really slowed this deck down pretty dramatically. But when you play Meowth instead of Chingling, what you're doing is basically just saying, hey, like I'm just playing full high roll. Sometimes, even though I know I'm not going to win the Chingling battle, and I know in other matchups Chingling is useful, Meowth is always has the potential to be extremely useful, right? Like that's the crazy part about Meowth, is that sometimes it literally just does not get KO'd. We've seen it in tournament play, and I think in ranked battles, this is going to be probably the funniest deck that anyone could ever play. You got to understand here. You could put your opponent to sleep, which is a 50-50 chance to stall them. Meowth itself never takes damage half the time. It draws a card. This is definitely one of the most egregious decks ever created in Pokemon Pocket. But again, this is ranked battles. It's the Wild West. Anything goes. And honestly, this is going to be one of my top recommendations. I know if people play this in ranked, they're either going to hate it or they're going to love it. But honestly, guys, I think this will give you a pretty decent winning matchup spread throughout any deck. Because this is when you play this type of deck, it does not matter. Nothing matters here. We're playing Poncho to protect the bench. We have Training Arena, Greninja, Copycat, Lycia. We're playing Meowth, guys. We're playing Meowth. Meowth is a 50 HP Pokemon. You can search it with Lycia. Absolutely ridiculous. This is the most ridiculous deck ever made, I think, quite frankly. It might not be like as dominant, it feels like, as maybe some of the other decks, but just the overall strategy here is embarrassing. It really is. This is just the most ridiculous deck I've ever seen. We're only playing one Rare Candy and then one Frogadier. And again, we lose to other Chingling decks, which is why we kind of need to swap around how we build this deck list in terms of Greninja, because the whole strategy of this deck is about getting Greninja up and running with double Cyrus and then attacking with Altaria. So Meowth is going to allow us to draw some cards throughout our deck. We have Copycat, we have Research. So we're playing one Rare Candy, one Frogadier to potentially get around the Chingling stuff. Like that's what it does, because Meowth is never going to be able to deal with Chingling. And that's a bit of a scary part about this deck particularly. But again, in the face of a Meowth, Chingling could just attack you pretty much infinitely, and you're going to survive like forever. So that's the funny part here. We're just abandoning the entire Chingling on Chingling action, and we're just saying, hey, like I'm just gonna stall this out until I draw all my Pokemon, and then hopefully you lose the game. Like that's kind of how this works. So Greninja plus Training Arena plus Mega Altaria is like 160 damage or something. It's super silly. Double Greninja, that's 180. 180. A ridiculous deck. I honestly feel bad even recommending this to you guys, but I had to because it's super toxic, and I think it's going to help. It's going to help you win games in ranked, you know? And this is kind of the number one quintessential example of like, hey, I don't care. I just don't care what you're playing, what you're going to do. None of it matters. I'm flipping coins. I'm drawing cards. We're playing Meowth. We're playing Swablu. Good luck, you know? Like, just let the dice roll. So there you go. Altaria Greninja with Meowth. Ridiculous deck. Absolutely toxic. Lastly is going to be the weekly wild card. The weekly wild card we reserve for decks that are, you know, not necessarily super popular, but have been doing pretty well recently, and I think have real potential to be quality decks in this ranked season. If you wanted to play something that was a little bit off meta, the wild card this week, and I'm sure you guys are very familiar with it, is going to be Gardevoir. I think Gardevoir's actually been performing really well in tournament play. This is definitely going to be more of like a consistency-based deck and not necessarily a high roll-based deck, but honestly quite strong. This is a deck that's been doing well in tournaments, and I think actually has pretty good matchup spreads across really anything in the entire game. When you take a look at all of the decks that we talked about previously in this video, Mega Gardevoir should be able to 2-hit KO effectively anything. We're very much in like this 2-hit KO metagame, and unless you're going up against Hydreigon, nothing's really hitting you for like that much damage. So Gardevoir plus Lucky Ice Pop plus Diantha should honestly, guys, like be able to live 2 hits from anything in the game, and that's a really, really big deal. So I like Gardevoir. I think that it's going to be a pretty decent choice here. We're not playing Poncho, so a little sketchy into Greninja decks, but honestly, I actually kind of believe in Gardevoir pretty well right now. I think it's definitely a decent option, and I think that this is one of those decks that I think, you know what, like sure, it's kind of floating in the B tier, but it kind of has some performances, you know, sometimes where it really kind of makes me feel like this is not a bad deck at all. Gardevoir came into a really, really tough metagame where Hydreigon was just super dominant, and it never really had a chance to shine, but I tried to tell people when I saw Gardevoir in the entire package here with Meloetta, I knew it was really good. Like, Gardevoir is not a weak deck whatsoever. It's a very, very strong deck. It just has some really bad matchups, some really good matchups. If this is a deck that you like to play, honestly, I think it's a pretty good choice to play for ranked battles right now, especially in like the lower ranks. Gardevoir is weak to Dark. All of these Pokemon are weak to Dark, which is kind of crazy. But there's only really one Dark. I mean, I guess there is Dark Greninja. Dark Greninja, we don't want to hit. Hydreigon, we don't want to hit. We don't want to hit anything Greninja, quite frankly, because we have no way to stop that from happening. But if we're not hitting Greninja, and if you're not hitting Hydreigon, I actually really like Mega Gardevoir's odds. Yeah, just a good deck right now, I think. And it's been performing well in tournaments, and I think that that's going to reflect pretty well for the ranked metagame as well. So anyway, that's the weekly wild card for this week. So there you go, guys. A bit of a shorter video today. I am on vacation, so I'm not actually going to be here this weekend. I'm leaving Friday today to go to Florida. So if you're watching this, I'm not going to be here, but the tournament is still happening. The live stream will still be happening. And you should definitely go and play, right? Link to register, 4 p.m. PT number 23 down in the description below. And yeah, hopefully this week goes well for you for ranked. If anything changes dramatically next week, of course, this is the place to hear about it. I don't know if that will happen. I don't think any new decks necessarily are going to pop up and be dominant, but I think the decks that are well positioned are going to change for sure into this last week. And what's crazy here is that next week we should be getting an announcement. Like early next week, we should be hearing back about the new like set coming, which is crazy how quickly the season's gone by. I'll be honest. But yeah, that's where we're at. So there you go, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out. I'll see you guys Monday for Meta Monday. Let's see how the tournament goes this weekend. I'm really excited about it. But yeah, there we go. Peace out. Have a good one. We'll see you guys later. And yeah. Bye.